it's gimmick. It's gimmickry. It's not serious fiscal policy.
Well, unless you've got a family of four, you want.
No, but of course, I feel for anyone who has to. I mean, it's going to be a long, hot summer, and I get all of that, but it's actually not the way that you can really run fiscal policy in a country. You can't just think, I'm going to do 3 months to make these people happy here, 3 months to make. She needs to sort of, and she's done it actually on the other side too, with a whole bunch of tax policies. You know, whatever you think of the merits of them, VAT on private schools, scaring off the non-doms, all of these things, they were sending a signal more than they were trying to raise revenue. They were kind of showing up her sort of left-wing bona fides. It was not effective tax policy. Most of them have raised far less money than they thought. So it's been kind of tax policy by gimmickry because the government has refused to address its, red lines of no change on income tax, no change on national insurance, which, well, they raised employer national insurance. You could raise more revenue if you wanted to quite efficiently by putting a penny on the rate of income tax. It wouldn't be popular, but you could do it.
Oh, it's popular here,
but
in this not necessarily representative audience.
Political courage.
Yeah.
But even that won't help unless the economy is growing. So that's the kind of bottom line, get the economy growing faster again.
And of course, Rachel Reeves wouldn't be the first Chancellor who had done something that sends a political signal but doesn't necessarily raise a lot of money or save a lot of money.
But it doesn't make it better.
Yeah, we've had a question from someone in the audience who didn't put their name, but they said, is the whole problem with the UK's economy that both the country and its population live on credit? So basically, the population wants more from the government than it's willing to pay for in taxes, and also you've then got everyone's individual credit card bills racking up as well.
I'm going to be the kind of Grinch of here, but yes, basically, is the answer to that. I mean, I think it is that you have a political system where nobody on any party is willing to say to people that actually some very tough decisions have to be made. And we're still in a sort of never land of politics. And until we're willing to have those conversations, we're going to, end up doing everything on credit. It's the same thing on defense. On the one hand, we say we need to increase defense spending because we recognize the threat that comes from Putin and so forth and so forth. But actually, no one's prepared to cut somewhere else to pay for it. So, do you do it on credit? Well, some Labour politicians were suggesting you could until the bond market said, no, you can't. Yeah. And it's the same with everything else. It feels like a very small bore conversation where people think, well, in the end, we can just borrow.
Felicity, on another point, Zanny was talking about the AI revolution, and this is an opportunity for Britain to have its third big shift that it teaches the world how to live in the modern world. I was doing an event earlier on. There was a sort of newspaper review with some other journalists and commentators, and we could ask the audience to vote in real time on certain issues. And one of the stories was on the front page of the Times today, and it's this review by Alan Milburn, the former health secretary, into why so many young people are economically inactive. Is it because of something about the job market? Is it about their mental health? And the line that the Times has picked out from their preview of it is that this idea that social media and phones has rewired young people's brains. So we're obviously entering a new era for work. And I'm just thinking the thing about Wales is Wales has been through that massive change of how people earn a living a couple of times in the last 100 years. And I know you've been reporting on Welsh politics, obviously not for 100 years, just to be clear, but for a good few years. And I just wonder, is the thing, and I know this is almost like setting you an exam in real time, so I'm sorry for landing you with this incredibly difficult question. Thanks, but in terms of kind of regeneration, retraining, what happens when a town loses its industry and everyone has to think about doing something different? Are there things that you've covered over the last few years that speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, Wales, certainly in the valleys, right, is your classic post-industrial landscape, isn't it? Where the mines fed the steelworks and, all of that, for the most part, is gone. We've seen the consequences of that, where it ended up, certainly with the closure of the mines in the valleys and stuff, basically putting a generation of people out of work, really. And I think that it's illustrative, really, of how we can't avoid change, obviously. And Wales was at the forefront of change in the Industrial Revolution. I mean, places like Merthyr Tydfil, was absolutely driving the Industrial Revolution. So Wales has seen it on both fronts, really. The massive sort of being the engine of it, and then also sort of being on the tailwind of the end of it. And I think what it is really illustrative of how do we how do we be nimble? How do we try to accommodate people whose lives have been upended, effectively? Because especially in the valleys with the closure of the mines, it wasn't simply that a lot of people in a locality lost their jobs. It was also sort of a social coherence that went too. And the most recent example of a big jobs blow that we've seen, obviously, has been in Port Talbot with the Tata steel plant there. Now, that is not closing. Tata is going to reopen that as an electric arc furnace, but that employs far fewer people. What we've seen there is, a lot of money going in to try to help people retrain. We've, got examples of people doing all sorts of things, starting their own businesses, that sort of thing. It remains to be seen how successful that will be. But with the AI revolution, trying to get out in front of it, I think, rather than trying to cope with it as it happens, is probably going to be the key. The difficulty is we don't really know yet what the impact of AI is going to be.
And I didn't reveal what the audience actually was voting on in that, to do with that Alan Milburn story. And so basically we said to them, do you have a member of your family or your extended family who's aged, 17 to 24, but who's really struggling to get a job? And 55% of people said no, which you might expect from a crowd of people who spend their weekends coming to an event like this. But that meant that 45% of people in that room, and there was hundreds of people there, said yes, they are. And Zanny, that's a lot of probably very well-educated, very motivated, very smart, nice people who are struggling to get a job.
Yeah, I was sitting in the front row watching you in that, and I was really struck by that 45% of people knew someone who was struggling to get a job in the audience this morning. Just two thoughts from that, because I thought the front page story in the Times and Alan Milburn's report, which I think comes out later this week, it is striking, right? There are almost 1 million